The phone screen glowed in my hands and every word I read felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. I stood in Trevor's home office, surrounded by the expensive furniture and art we'd collected together over 8 years of marriage, and I read the messages that destroyed everything I thought I knew. I'm leaving her tomorrow. I need to find myself again, and that path leads back to you. The response from Colette came quickly. Finally. I've waited so long for you to remember who you really are. Who we are together. She's been good to me, but she's not you. She never made me feel alive the way you do. When you're free, we can travel like we used to. No obligations, no boring dinner parties, just us. I scrolled up. The messages went back an entire year. A full year of my husband telling his ex-girlfriend that he was coming back to her. A full year of planning his exit while I planned surprise birthday parties for him, while I supported his business deals, while I made love to him and told him I loved him every single day. My hands should have been shaking. I should have been crying. But something strange happened instead. I felt cold. Completely and utterly cold, like someone had flipped a switch inside me and turned off every emotion except one, clarity. I heard the garage door open downstairs. Trevor was home early. Of course he was. Tomorrow was the day according to his messages. He probably planned to have dinner with me one last time before shattering my world in the morning. I carefully placed his phone exactly where I'd found it, on his desk beside his laptop. Then I walked out of the office down the hallway and met him at the top of the stairs. Hey babe, he said, loosening his tie. He looked good as always. Trevor was the kind of handsome that turned heads wherever we went. Tall, fit, with dark hair that had just enough gray at the temples to make him look distinguished at 42. His smile was perfect. I used to love that smile. How was your day? Fine, I said. My voice sounded normal to my own ears. Dinner will be ready in 30 minutes. Perfect. I need to make a few calls first. I watched him walk into his office and close the door. I heard the lock click. He never locked that door unless he was on important business calls. Now I knew what those calls really were. I went downstairs to the kitchen and finished preparing the meal I'd started before my world ended. Grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, a salad with his favorite dressing. I set the table with our good china. I even lit candles. When Trevor came down, he looked surprised. What's the occasion? No occasion, I said, serving his plate. Just felt like making things nice. We ate in relative silence. He checked his phone several times. I wondered if Colette was texting him, if she was counting down the hours until he was hers again. Naomi, he said suddenly, putting down his fork. We need to talk. Here it comes, I thought. But I kept my face calm. Okay. He shifted in his chair. For the first time, he looked uncomfortable. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately. About my life, about where I am, about what I want. I sipped my water and waited. I think I need some time away. Some time to figure things out. Figure what out? I asked. Who I am. What I really want. I feel like I've been on this hamster wheel for so long, just going through the motions. Building the business, coming home, dinner, sleep, repeat. I need to find myself again. The words were so rehearsed. I could almost see him practicing this speech in the mirror. And you can't find yourself here? With me. He had the decency to look guilty. It's not about you. You've been great. You've been the perfect wife, honestly. But that's part of the problem. Everything is so perfect, so predictable. I feel like I'm suffocating. I set down my glass very carefully. So what are you saying exactly? I'm saying I need to leave for a while. I need space to breathe, to remember who I was before all of this. Before me, you mean? Before the marriage, the mortgage, the responsibilities. I need to feel alive again. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so devastating. He wanted to feel alive with the woman he'd been cheating with for a year. He wanted adventure and excitement with Colette while I stayed here in our perfect house with my perfect manners, waiting for him to find himself. How long is a while? I asked. The question seemed to throw him off. I don't know. However long it takes. And us? Our marriage? He rubbed his face. I think we should take a break. See how things feel after some time apart. A break? I repeated flatly. You want a break from our marriage? I think it would be good for both of us. You could figure out what you want to. Maybe you've been just as stuck as I have. The manipulation was so smooth. Make it about both of us. Make it seem like he was doing me a favor by leaving. When are you planning to go? Tomorrow. I've already made arrangements. Of course he had. He'd had a year to make arrangements. Where will you go? I'll stay at the apartment downtown for a while. Then maybe travel. I haven't decided yet. The apartment downtown. The one we used when we worked late. The one that I later discovered he'd been using to meet Colette. The one where they'd probably been together while I sat at home wondering why he was working such long hours. I should have confronted him. I should have thrown his phone in his face and screamed about the messages. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was strategy. Or maybe it was just that cold, clear feeling that told me I needed to think before I acted. Okay, I said simply. He blinked. Okay. If you need to go find yourself, then go. I'm not going to beg you to stay. The confusion on his face was almost satisfying. He'd expected tears, arguments, maybe even me clinging to him and promising to change. He'd expected drama. You're not upset? I'm sure I will be, I said honestly. But right now I'm just tired. If this is what you need, then do it. He stared at me for a long moment and I could see the wheels turning in his head. This wasn't going according to his script. He probably planned to comfort me, to promise we'd work things out eventually, to keep me hoping while he ran off with Colette. I'll start packing tonight, he said slowly. I'll be gone by morning. Do you need help? No. No, I've got it. I stood and began clearing the dishes. My hands were steady. My breathing was even. Inside, something was breaking, but I wouldn't let him see it. I wouldn't give him that satisfaction. That night, I lay in our bed and listened to him moving around in the guest room, packing his life into suitcases. I stared at the ceiling and felt tears finally come, silent and hot. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage. He planned this. He'd been planning it for a year. Every kiss, every I love you, every moment we'd shared for the past 12 months had been a lie. He'd been saying goodbye in increments, checking out piece by piece while I remained completely devoted. But as I lay there in the dark, something shifted inside me. The rage crystallized into something harder, sharper. Something that felt like determination. If Trevor wanted to leave to find himself, then I would let him go. But I wouldn't be here waiting when he realized what he'd thrown away. I wouldn't be the perfect wife sitting in the perfect house, hoping he'd come back. I would find myself too. And the person I found would be someone who didn't need him, didn't want him, and didn't forgive him. Tomorrow he would walk out that door thinking he was free. But he would be walking away from the best thing that ever happened to him, and by the time he figured that out, I would be so far gone he could never catch up. I fell asleep with that thought, and for the first time in months I slept soundly. Morning light filtered through the curtains, and for a moment I forgot what was happening. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway, the sound of suitcase wheels on hardwood, and reality came crashing back. I got out of bed and put on my robe. When I walked downstairs, Trevor was loading bags into his car. 3 suitcases and a garment bag. He was taking more than I expected. This wasn't a temporary departure. This was a man moving out. He came back inside and found me in the kitchen making coffee. I didn't want to wake you, he said. I was already awake. The silence between us felt heavy. He shifted his weight from foot to foot and I realized he was nervous. Good. Naomi, I want you to know this isn't about you. You didn't do anything wrong. I poured 2 cups of coffee and handed him one. I know. You do. Of course. You've made it very clear this is about you finding yourself. Your needs, your journey, your life. I sipped my coffee and met his eyes. I understand perfectly. He looked relieved, which made me want to throw the hot coffee in his face. But I kept my expression neutral. I'll call you in a few days once I'm settled. We can talk about logistics, bills, that kind of thing. There's no rush. I can handle things here. The house is in both our names. So is the joint account. Take what you need. How generous. He was giving me permission to access my own money in my own house. I'll set up my own accounts, I said. It will be simpler that way. Something flickered across his face. Maybe he expected me to be more dependent on him. Maybe he liked the idea of me needing him even while he ran off with another woman. Whatever you think is best, he said. He set down his coffee cup and picked up his keys. This was it. The actual moment of leaving. I really do think this will be good for both of us, he said, lingering by the door. Maybe when I come back we can figure out what we both really want. There it was again. The manipulation. Keeping me on the hook, making me think there was a chance we'd work things out. Keeping me from moving on while he enjoyed his freedom. Maybe, I said non-committally. He seemed to expect more. A hug, a kiss, tears, something. But I just stood there with my coffee, looking at him calmly. Okay then, he said finally. I'll be in touch. Have a safe drive. He walked out the door and I watched through the window as he got into his car. He sat there for a moment looking back at the house. Then he started the engine and drove away. I stood in the quiet house, listening to the silence. 8 years of marriage, gone in the time it took him to pack 3 suitcases. 8 years of building a life together, supporting his dreams, putting my own goals on hold, and this was how it ended. With him driving off to find himself in the arms of an ex-girlfriend. I finished my coffee, then I went upstairs and got dressed. Not in comfortable clothes for moping around the house. I put on a business suit, did my hair and makeup, and grabbed my laptop. Then I got in my own car and drove to the one place I knew I could think clearly, the public library downtown. It might seem strange going to the library on the day my husband left me. But I needed to be somewhere quiet, somewhere with resources, somewhere I could start planning. And I couldn't do that in the house we'd shared. Every room reminded me of him, of us, of the life I thought we had. I found a quiet corner table and opened my laptop. Then I started making lists. First, lawyers. I needed the best divorce attorney in the city. Not someone to help us reconcile or mediate a separation. Someone who would fight for me and protect my interests. I started researching, reading reviews, taking notes. Second, finances. I needed to know exactly what we had, where it was, and how it was divided. I logged into our joint accounts and started documenting everything. Bank statements, investment portfolios, property deeds. I downloaded and saved everything to a secure cloud account Trevor didn't know about. Third, evidence. I needed documentation of his affair. I took screenshots of his messages with Colette, being careful not to send them to myself from his phone. Instead, I used my phone to photograph his screen. The photos were time-stamped and showed his name at the top. Undeniable proof. Fourth, my future. This was the hardest list to start. For 8 years, my future had been tied to Trevor. I'd put my own career dreams aside to support his business. I'd moved across the country when he needed to relocate. I'd been the perfect corporate wife, hosting dinners and attending events and making connections that helped him succeed. But what did I want? Who was I without him? I sat staring at the blank document for a long time. Then, slowly I started typing. I'd always been good with people. I'd always been able to walk into a room and read it, figure out what people needed, what they wanted. I'd used those skills to help Trevor navigate business relationships, but I'd never used them for myself. What if I did? What if I started my own consulting business? I had connections. I knew people in every major industry in the city. I'd spent 8 years attending events, making small talk, remembering names and details. People liked me. People trusted me. I could do this. I could build something of my own. The ideas started flowing faster. A luxury consulting firm, helping high-end clients with business strategy, relationship management, personal branding. I'd charge premium rates and deliver exceptional results. I'd use everything I'd learned in 8 years of being Trevor's secret weapon, and I'd use it for myself. I spent 6 hours in that library planning my future. By the time I left, I had a list of 10 divorce lawyers to contact, a complete picture of our financial situation, secured evidence of Trevor's affair, and the beginnings of a business plan. I also had something else, purpose. For the first time in years, I felt like I had a direction that was mine alone. When I got home that evening, the house felt different. Emptier, yes, but also freer. I walked through each room and started seeing it through new eyes. This was my house now. Not our house. Mine. I could change anything I wanted. I could paint the walls. I could get rid of furniture. I could make this space my own. But first, I had work to do. I spent the evening calling lawyers. Most had already left for the day, but I left detailed messages. I explained my situation in clear, unemotional terms. My husband had left me after a year-long affair. I needed representation for what would likely be a contested divorce. I had evidence and documentation ready. 3 lawyers called me back before 9 that night. Good lawyers don't waste time when they smell a case worth taking. I scheduled consultations with all 3 for the following week. Then I opened a bottle of wine, poured myself a large glass, and sat on the couch in the dark. This was the first moment all day I'd let myself really feel what was happening. My marriage was over. The man I'd loved and trusted had been lying to me for a year. He'd left me for someone else. He'd broken my heart and didn't even have the decency to be honest about it. I let myself cry for 30 minutes. I ugly cried, the kind with hiccups and snot and gasping breaths. I cried for the time I'd wasted, the trust I'd given, the future I'd imagined that would never happen. Then I stopped. I wiped my face, finished my wine, and went upstairs to shower. Tomorrow, I would meet with a financial advisor. I would start separating our accounts. I would begin the process of untangling my life from Trevor's. And I would do it all without him knowing what was coming. He thought he was in control. He thought he'd made the decision to leave, to take a break, to find himself. He had no idea that the moment he drove away, I'd stopped being his wife and started being his adversary. As I lay in bed that night, my phone buzzed. A text from Trevor. Made it to the apartment safely. Hope you're okay. We'll talk soon. I stared at the message for a long time. A few days ago, I would have responded immediately, telling him I loved him, asking how he was feeling, trying to keep that connection strong. Now, I simply turned off my phone and went to sleep. Let him wonder. Let him worry. Let him start to realize that maybe I wasn't going to sit around waiting for him to finish finding himself. The game had changed. He just didn't know it yet. The first lawyer I met with was a shark in expensive heels. Her name was Patricia Ford, and her office occupied the top floor of a downtown high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. She was maybe 50, with sharp eyes and a handshake that meant business. "Tell me everything," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her massive desk. I did. I told her about Trevor leaving, about the messages I'd found, about his claim that he needed to find himself. I showed her the screenshots on my phone, the documented timeline of his affair with Colette. Patricia's expression never changed, but I saw her eyes gleam with something that looked like satisfaction. "Have you confronted him about the affair?" she asked. "No." "Good. Don't. Not yet." She leaned back in her chair. "Right now he thinks he's in control. He thinks he left on his own terms, that you're sitting at home crying, that you'll take him back when he's done playing around. We're going to use that." "How?" "By being 2 steps ahead of him at all times. You said you've documented your joint finances?" I pulled out my laptop and showed her everything I'd saved. Bank statements, investment accounts, property holdings, business assets. Patricia smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. "You're more prepared than 90% of the clients who walk through my door. Most people come in here emotional, scattered, with no documentation. You came in ready for war." "I don't want war," I said. "I just want what's fair. Fair is what will get you. But first, we need to secure everything. I want you to open your own bank account tomorrow. Move exactly half of every joint account into it. Not more, not less. We want to be fair, but we also want to protect you. What if he notices?" "He will notice. And he'll probably be angry. Let him be angry. You have every right to protect your assets during a separation." She pulled up a document on her computer. "I'm also going to file for a forensic accounting review of his business accounts." "Why?" "Because people who cheat on their spouses often hide assets. They think they're clever, moving money around, setting up accounts their partner doesn't know about. The messages you showed me mentioned travel with his girlfriend. He's funding that somehow, and I want to know where that money is coming from." I hadn't thought about that. Trevor always said I had access to everything, but what if there were accounts I didn't know existed? How long will that take? "A few weeks. In the meantime, I'll have my associate draw up divorce papers. We'll file based on adultery, which in this state means you're entitled to a more favorable settlement. He broke the marriage contract. There are consequences for that." It felt surreal, sitting in this office talking about divorcing Trevor like it was a business transaction. But maybe that's what it needed to be. He treated our marriage like something he could pause when it was inconvenient. I would treat the divorce like the legal dissolution of a partnership. "What about the house?" I asked. "It's in both names?" "Yes." "Do you want to keep it?" I thought about that. Did I want to stay in the house where Trevor and I had lived? Where every room held memories? "No," I said. "I want something new. Something that's just mine." Patricia nodded approvingly. "Then we'll push for the house to be sold and the proceeds split. Or better yet, we'll push for you to buy him out at current market value. You keep the house, sell it yourself later for whatever you can get, and the profit is yours alone." "Can we do that? With the evidence of adultery?" "Absolutely. A judge will look favorably on the wrong spouse who wants to maintain stability while the cheating husband runs off with his girlfriend." We spent another hour going over details. Patricia explained the process, the timeline, what to expect. She was efficient, thorough, and clearly very good at her job. When I left her office, I felt lighter. I had a plan. I had someone on my side who knew how to fight. The next morning, I went to 3 different banks and opened new accounts. Personal checking, savings, investment accounts. Then I transferred exactly half of every joint account Trevor and I shared. It was a lot of money. More than I'd realized. Trevor's business was successful, and we'd been careful about saving. Seeing those numbers and accounts with only my name on them felt powerful. I was finishing the last transfer when my phone rang. "Trevor." I let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, he called again. I ignored it. He called a 3rd time and I finally answered. "What did you do?" His voice was tight with anger. "I opened my own accounts and moved my share of our money. Like you suggested." "Your share?" "Naomi, you took half of everything." "Yes. which is fair since it's all marital assets. I kept my voice calm and professional, like Patricia had coached me. You can't just do that without talking to me. You left without talking to me. You've been planning this for a year without talking to me. I'm simply protecting myself during our separation. Separation. I said I needed space, not that we were separating. You left our home to be with another woman. That's called separation, Trevor. Silence on the other end. Then, what are you talking about? Colette. Your ex-girlfriend. The woman you've been having an affair with for a year. The woman you're currently living with in our downtown apartment. Does any of this ring a bell? More silence. I could almost hear him trying to figure out how I knew. It's not what you think, he said finally. I laughed. I couldn't help it. That's your response? It's not what I think? I read your messages, Trevor. All of them. I know exactly what it is. You went through my phone? You're upset about that? Really? You cheated on me for a year, but I'm the one who did something wrong by discovering it. I was going to tell you. I just needed time to figure out how. You had a year. You could have told me at any point instead of lying to my face every single day. His voice changed, became softer, more manipulative. Naomi, can we please talk about this in person? I don't want to do this over the phone. There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. What does that mean? It means I'm done. I'm done being the perfect wife while you figure out who you are. I'm done waiting for you to decide if I'm good enough. I'm done with all of it. Naomi, please. Don't make any rash decisions. We can work this out. No, we can't. You'll be hearing from my lawyer soon. Have a nice life, Trevor. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. But I felt good. I felt powerful. He called back immediately. I declined the call and blocked his number. Over the next week, Trevor tried everything. He emailed me. He sent messages through mutual friends. He even showed up at the house one evening, but I didn't answer the door. I watched through the window as he knocked and called my name, and I felt nothing but satisfaction. Patricia's associate served him with divorce papers on a Friday afternoon at his office. Trevor called Patricia's office immediately, demanding to speak with me. Patricia told him all communication needed to go through the lawyers. The forensic accountant found 2 accounts Trevor had kept secret. One had over $200,000 in it. The other had been closed just 2 weeks before he left me, and the money had been transferred to an account in Colette's name. He was giving her money, Patricia explained when she showed me the reports. A lot of money. Probably funding her lifestyle while they had their affair. The betrayal kept cutting deeper. It wasn't just that he'd been unfaithful. He'd been stealing from our marriage to pay for it. Can we get that money back? I asked. Some of it. The transfers to Colette will be harder to prove unless she volunteers to return it, which she won't. But the secret accounts are marital assets. That money is half yours. While Patricia built our case, I built my business. I spent every day networking, reaching out to old contacts, letting people know I was starting a consulting firm. The response was overwhelming. People remembered me from events and parties. They'd always known I was the brains behind Trevor's success, even if he got the credit. Within 2 weeks, I had my first 3 clients. Within a month, I'd signed contracts worth over $300,000. I worked 14-hour days and I loved every minute of it. I was using my brain again, solving problems, creating strategies. I was good at this. Really good. And every success felt like proof. Proof that I didn't need Trevor. Proof that I'd always been valuable on my own. Proof that leaving me was the biggest mistake he'd ever make. One evening, I was working late when I got an email from a reporter. She was writing a story about successful women entrepreneurs and wanted to interview me. Someone had recommended me as a rising star in the business community. I agreed to the interview. The article came out 2 weeks later in the city's major business magazine. They'd photographed me in my new office space, standing by the window in a sharp suit, looking confident and powerful. The headline read, "From Shadow to Spotlight, How Naomi Bennett Built a Consulting Empire." The article talked about my background, my new business, my approach to consulting. It mentioned briefly that I was recently separated from my husband, billionaire real estate developer Trevor Bennett, but framed it as me stepping out on my own after years of being behind the scenes. My phone exploded with new client inquiries. Apparently, the article made me sound like someone who knew how to navigate high-stakes business while maintaining grace under pressure. Patricia called me when she saw the article. "This is perfect. The narrative is now about you thriving, not about you being abandoned. Keep it up." I found out later that Trevor had read the article. A mutual friend told me he'd been furious, claiming I was trying to destroy his reputation by making our separation public. He'd been wrong about so many things, but he was especially wrong about that. I wasn't trying to destroy his reputation. I was building my own. If his got damaged in the process, that was just a side effect of him not being the center of my world anymore. 3 months after he left, I was a different person. I'd lost 15 pounds without trying, simply because I was too busy and excited about my work to stress eat. I cut my hair into a sleek bob. I'd updated my entire wardrobe to reflect my new role as a business owner. I looked in the mirror one morning and barely recognized myself. But I liked what I saw. I looked strong, confident, free. Trevor had left to find himself. In the process, I'd found myself too. And the person I'd found was someone who didn't need him at all. My new office space was everything I'd dreamed about. Located on the 18th floor of a modern building in the financial district, it had windows that overlooked the city and sleek furniture that screamed success. I'd splurged on the interior design, choosing clean lines, expensive art, and a color scheme of navy, cream, and gold. When clients walked in, I wanted them to immediately understand they were dealing with someone serious. Someone who delivered results. I hired 2 assistants within the first month. Vanessa was fresh out of business school, hungry and brilliant. She handled research and analysis. Brooke had 15 years of experience in project management and could organize anything. Together we made a formidable team. "We need a name that reflects what we do," Vanessa said during one of our planning meetings. "Something that sounds expensive and exclusive." We threw around ideas for hours. Finally, I decided on something simple but powerful: the Bennett Collective. I kept my married name, not because I wanted anything to do with Trevor, but because it was my name too. I'd built relationships under that name. People knew me as Naomi Bennett. Changing it would be like starting over, and I wasn't starting over. I was leveling up. The Bennett Collective officially launched on a Monday in October, 4 months after Trevor left. We sent out elegant announcements to every contact I'd made over the years, offering luxury consulting services for high-net-worth individuals and corporations. The response was immediate. A tech CEO I'd met at a charity gala hired us to help him navigate a tricky business merger. He paid a $50,000 retainer without blinking. A hotel chain I'd once made casual conversation with at a fundraiser brought us on to develop a customer experience strategy for their luxury properties. That contract alone was worth $200,000. A celebrity who'd sat next to me at a dinner party hired us to help her launch a lifestyle brand. She told me she'd remembered how I'd given her advice about positioning and branding just in conversation, and now she wanted to pay for that expertise. It turned out that 8 years of being Trevor's wife, attending endless events and making genuine connections had given me something valuable: a network of people who trusted me and respected my judgment. I worked constantly, but it didn't feel like work. Every successful pitch, every satisfied client, every 5-star review felt like building something real, something mine. My social media presence grew naturally. I posted about business strategy, leadership, personal growth. I shared behind-the-scenes glimpses of my office and my work. I kept it professional but personable. Women started reaching out to me, asking for advice about starting their own businesses, leaving bad relationships, finding their worth. I tried to respond to as many as I could, offering encouragement and resources. One woman sent me a long message about how she'd been in a similar situation, how her husband had left her feeling worthless, and how seeing my success had inspired her to go back to school and pursue her dreams. She ended it with, "Thank you for showing me that life doesn't end when someone leaves. Sometimes it's just beginning." I cried when I read that. Good tears though. Tears of gratitude that my pain had somehow helped someone else. The divorce proceedings continued in the background. Patricia kept me updated on every development, but I tried not to let it consume my thoughts. Trevor's lawyers were fighting the forensic accountant's findings, claiming the secret accounts were for business purposes. Patricia had evidence that they weren't. Trevor himself tried to reach out several times. He sent flowers to my office. I had Vanessa donate them to a nursing home. He sent a handwritten letter to the house. I threw it away without reading it. He even tried to schedule a meeting through mutual business contacts. I declined. I had nothing to say to him. Through the grapevine, I heard things were not going well with Colette. Apparently, the fantasy of their reunion wasn't matching the reality. She was expensive, demanding, and dramatic. Trevor's business was struggling because he was distracted. Some of his major clients had left, either because they didn't like how he treated me, or because they could see his focus wasn't on his work anymore. I should have felt satisfied hearing that, and part of me did. But mostly I just felt indifferent. His problems weren't my problems anymore. I started going to therapy. Not because I was falling apart, but because I wanted to understand why I'd allowed myself to become so small in my marriage. Why I'd put aside my dreams for his. Why I'd accepted being in the background. My therapist, Dr. Hammond, was direct and insightful. "You weren't small," she said during one session. "You were adapting." Many intelligent, capable women adapt to their relationships, especially when they're told that's what love looks like. Supporting their partner. Being flexible. Making sacrifices. The problem isn't that you did those things. The problem is that it wasn't reciprocal. He never supported my dreams because I never told him what they were, I admitted. "Did you know what they were?" I thought about that. No, I guess I didn't. I defined myself through him for so long that I forgot I was supposed to have my own identity. And now I know exactly who I am. And I like her a lot better. Dr. Hammond smiled. That's growth. I also started taking care of my body in new ways. Not to look good for anyone else, but because I wanted to feel strong. I hired a personal trainer who kicked my butt 3 times a week. I took up boxing, which turned out to be incredibly therapeutic. There was something satisfying about hitting a heavy bag as hard as I could, imagining it was all my anger and hurt being released. I ate better because I had time to cook real meals. I slept better because I was exhausted from full, productive days. I looked better because I was genuinely happy. 6 months after Trevor left, I bought a penthouse apartment in the most exclusive building downtown. It was half the size of the house we'd shared, but it was all mine. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a modern kitchen, a bathroom with a soaking tub and a rain shower. A balcony where I could drink morning coffee and watch the city wake up. I hired an interior designer and told her I wanted it to feel like a sanctuary. Peaceful but luxurious. Adult but not stuffy. She created a space with soft grays, warm wood tones, plush textiles, and carefully curated art. Every piece was chosen for me, for my taste, for my life. The day I moved in, I stood in my empty living room and cried. These were happy tears though. Tears of accomplishment and freedom and pride. I'd done this. I'd taken the worst thing that ever happened to me and turned it into the best thing that ever happened to me. That night, I threw a small gathering for my closest friends and my team. We drank champagne and ate takeout and celebrated new beginnings. To Naomi, Vanessa said, raising her glass. The strongest person I know. To revenge success, Brooke added with a grin. The best kind of revenge. We all laughed, but it was true. I wasn't trying to hurt Trevor. I was just succeeding so loudly he couldn't help but hear it. Later, after everyone left, I sat on my balcony and looked out at the city lights. My phone buzzed. An Instagram notification. Trevor had viewed my story, which showed photos from the gathering in my new place. I blocked him immediately. He didn't get to watch my life anymore. He'd given up that privilege when he walked out the door. I thought about where I'd been 6 months ago. Crying in the dark, feeling like my world had ended. Wondering how I'd survive. Now I was thriving. My business was successful. My life was full. I was surrounded by people who valued me and respected me. I was building something real, something lasting, something that belonged entirely to me. Trevor had left to find himself. He probably imagined I'd be stuck in limbo, waiting for him to come back, desperate and needy. Instead, I'd found myself too. And the version of me I'd found was someone who didn't need rescuing, didn't need fixing, and definitely didn't need him. The best part? I was just getting started. The international hotel chain contract changed everything. I'd been working with Prestige Hospitality Group for 3 months, helping them develop a luxury customer experience strategy for their North American properties. The CEO, Gabrielle Torres, was a force of nature. She'd built the company from a single boutique hotel to a global empire, and she didn't tolerate mediocrity. She also didn't tolerate nonsense, which is probably why we got along so well. Your strategy increased our satisfaction ratings by 18% in just 3 months, Gabrielle said during a video call. She was in Paris, I was in my office. Our guests love the personalized service protocols you developed. I'm glad it's working, I said, trying to stay professional while internally celebrating. It's more than working. It's exceeding every expectation. Which is why I want to expand our contract. I want you to develop the same strategy for our European properties. Then Asia. Then everywhere. I kept my face calm, but my heart was racing. That would be a significant undertaking. Which is why the fee would be significant. I'm talking about a 2-year contract worth 7 figures. 7 figures. She was offering me a contract worth over $1 million. I'd need to expand my team, I said, my mind already spinning with possibilities. Do it. Hire the best people. I want the same level of excellence you've shown here. Can you handle it? I thought about everything I'd built in 6 months, everything I'd learned, everything I'd overcome. Yes, I said confidently. I can handle it. Good. My legal team will send over the contract details next week. Start planning your European tour. You'll need to visit each property to understand their unique needs. After the call ended, I sat in my office staring at my laptop screen. $1 million contract. International travel. A chance to build something truly global. I called Vanessa and Brooke into my office and told them the news. They screamed. We actually screamed like teenagers, jumping and hugging each other. We need to hire at least 3 more people, I said once we calmed down. Maybe 4. And we'll need a bigger office space. Already on it, Brooke said, pulling out her tablet. I've been quietly looking at office spaces just in case we needed to expand. There's a beautiful space 2 floors up with twice our current square footage. You were planning for this? She grinned. I've seen how you work. I knew expansion was inevitable. Over the next 2 weeks, we hired 3 new consultants and a full-time marketing director. We moved into the larger office space, which had a conference room, individual offices, and an open workspace that encouraged collaboration. I also hired a business manager to handle the financial side of things, freeing me up to focus on strategy and client relationships. The Bennett Collective was no longer just me. It was a real company with a real team and real growth potential. The divorce was finalized in November, 8 months after Trevor left. Patricia called me with the news. The judge ruled in your favor on almost everything, she said, and I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. You get 55% of marital assets due to his adultery. The house sold for more than expected, so your portion is substantial. The retirement accounts are split, with you receiving the larger share. And he has to pay your legal fees. What about the money he gave to Colette? He has to pay you back your portion. It's considered dissipation of marital assets. The judge was not pleased that he'd been funding his affair with joint money. I closed my eyes and felt something release in my chest. It was over. Legally, officially over. Thank you, Patricia. For everything. You made it easy. You were prepared, you were smart, and you never let emotion override strategy. I wish all my clients were like you. That evening, I treated my team to dinner at the best restaurant in the city. We celebrated the contract, the expansion, and my official freedom. How do you feel? Vanessa asked. About the divorce being final? Relieved, I said honestly. I feel relieved. It was true. I didn't feel sad or angry anymore. I just felt free. I started traveling for the prestige hospitality contract. Paris first, then London, then Rome. I visited each property, met with staff, observed operations, and developed customized strategies. The travel was exhausting but exhilarating. I loved experiencing different cultures, trying new foods, meeting new people. I'd never traveled much during my marriage because Trevor was always too busy. Now I could go anywhere I wanted, whenever I wanted. I documented my travels on social media. Not in an obnoxious look at my fabulous life way, but in a genuine this is my work and love it way. I posted photos of beautiful hotels, interesting architecture, business meetings. I shared insights about customer service and luxury hospitality. My following grew. People were interested in the work I was doing, the life I was building, the journey I was on. I also started speaking at business conferences. The first invitation came from a women's entrepreneurship summit. They wanted me to talk about building a business after a major life change. I almost said no. Speaking in public wasn't something I'd ever done. But then I thought about the woman who'd messaged me about how my story inspired her. Maybe I could help more people by sharing what I'd learned. The speech was nerve-wracking, but once I started talking, it felt natural. I told my story honestly. Not all the details, but the outline. My husband left. I started a business. I rebuilt my life. And I'd never been happier. The standing ovation surprised me. Women came up to me afterward with tears in their eyes, telling me their own stories, thanking me for being real about the pain and the triumph. I realized something important that day. My story mattered. Not just to me, but to other people who needed to know that life could get better after devastation. I started accepting more speaking invitations. Business conferences, women's groups, university career panels. I talked about entrepreneurship, resilience, self-worth, building something from nothing. The speaking fees were generous, but that wasn't why I did it. I did it because I remembered what it felt like to be lost and broken, and if I could help one person feel less alone, it was worth it. By December, exactly 1 year after Trevor's first messages to Colette, my life was unrecognizable from what it had been. My company had 12 employees and contracts with clients in 6 countries. We tripled our revenue projections. I'd been featured in 3 major business publications. I'd spoken at 8 conferences. I'd traveled to more countries in 6 months than I had in my entire life before. I'd also donated a significant amount of money to organizations that helped women leave bad situations and start their own businesses. If my pain could fund someone else's freedom, that felt right. I bought a vacation house. Nothing huge, just a small cottage on the coast where I could escape on weekends. It had a porch with a view of the ocean and a fireplace for cool evenings. It was peaceful and private and entirely mine. My social media showed glimpses of all of it. The business success, the travel, the personal growth. I never posted about Trevor or the divorce or what had happened. That was private. But the results of moving forward? Those were worth sharing. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard that Trevor was not doing well. His business had lost several major clients. Colette had left him after he couldn't maintain the expensive lifestyle she wanted. He'd moved into a smaller apartment and was struggling to rebuild his reputation. Some part of me thought I should feel sorry for him. But I didn't. He'd made his choices. He'd destroyed something good because he thought he deserved better, and he'd found out the hard way that the grass isn't always greener. I wasn't glad he was suffering. I just didn't care. On New Year's Eve, I threw a party at my penthouse for my team and closest friends. We watched the fireworks from my balcony, drinking champagne and making toasts to the year ahead. To new beginnings, someone said. To success, someone else added. To never settling for less than we deserve, I said, raising my glass. We all drank to that. As the countdown to midnight began, I looked around at the people in my home. These were people who valued me, supported me, believed in me. These were people who'd seen me at my lowest and helped me climb to my highest. This was my life now. Not perfect but real. Not always easy but always moving forward. When midnight struck and everyone cheered, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Complete. I was complete on my own. I didn't need someone else to make me whole. I'd always been whole. I'd just forgotten it for a while. Trevor had left to find himself. In the process, he'd lost the best thing he'd ever had. And I'd found everything I never knew I was missing. I didn't actively seek information about Trevor. I didn't check his social media or ask mutual friends about him. But in a city like ours, where business and social circles overlapped constantly, information had a way of finding you anyway. I first heard he was struggling from Gabrielle during one of our video calls. I ran into Trevor Bennett at a networking event in New York, she said casually. He tried to pitch me on some real estate investment opportunity. It was desperate and poorly thought out. What happened to him? He used to be sharp. We're divorced, I said simply. I don't really know what he's up to these days. Gabrielle's expression shifted to understanding. I didn't realize. My apologies for bringing him up. It's fine. Ancient history. But after that, I started noticing more mentions. A business associate mentioned that Trevor had lost a major development deal. Someone else said his company had downsized. A former colleague asked if I'd heard about Trevor and Colette's dramatic breakup at a restaurant. I hadn't heard and I didn't ask for details. What I did hear from a mutual friend who felt I should know was that Trevor was trying to rebuild his reputation but struggling. Apparently, he'd spent too much time focused on his relationship drama and not enough time on his business. Clients had lost faith. Partners had moved on. The industry had a long memory, and people remembered how he treated his wife. Some of his former clients came to me, the friend admitted. They said they'd always known you were the brains behind his success. They wanted to work with you instead. I wasn't surprised. I'd been at every dinner, every negotiation, every strategy session. I'd offered insights and made connections. I'd just done it quietly from the background. Now I was doing it in the spotlight and people could see what I'd always been capable of. In February, 14 months after Trevor left, I got an email from him. It had been months since he tried to contact me, and seeing his name in my inbox felt strange. Like a reminder of a different life. I almost deleted it without reading. But curiosity won. The email was long. He apologized for everything. He said he'd made a terrible mistake. He said leaving me was the worst decision of his life. He said Colette wasn't who he thought she was. He said he'd been stupid and selfish and completely wrong. He said he wanted to talk. To meet. To see if there was any chance we could work things out. He ended the email with, I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking for a chance to fix this. You were always the best thing in my life and I was too blind to see it. Please, Naomi. Can we talk? I read the email 3 times. Then I saved it to a folder and didn't respond. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. He'd finally realized what he'd lost. He wanted me back. I'd won. But it didn't feel like winning. It felt empty. I didn't want him back. Not because I was still angry, but because I genuinely didn't want that life anymore. I didn't want to be married to Trevor. I didn't want to go back to being in the background. I didn't want to rebuild something that had been broken from the start. I'd found something better. Myself. Dr. Hammond and I talked about the email and therapy. How did it make you feel? She asked. Sad, I think. Sad that he wasted so much time. Sad that he hurt both of us for nothing. Sad that he thought I'd still be available after everything. Do you feel tempted to respond? No. I don't know what I'd say. Sorry your fantasy didn't work out? Sorry you destroyed our marriage for something that wasn't real? There's nothing to say. You've moved on. Completely. That's powerful, Naomi. Many people in your situation would struggle with those feelings. The fact that you're genuinely indifferent shows how much healing you've done. She was right. I'd done the work. I'd processed the pain, the anger, the betrayal. I'd rebuilt my life from the ground up. I discovered who I was without him. Going back would mean undoing all of that. And I wasn't willing to do that for anyone. The second email came a week later. This one was shorter, more desperate. Please respond. I need to know you got my message. I need to talk to you. Please. I didn't respond to that one either. The third email arrived a few days after that. Angry this time. You can't ignore me forever. We were married for 8 years. I deserve at least a conversation. Stop being petty and talk to me. The tone shift was revealing. First apologetic, then desperate, now angry. It wasn't about me. It was about him needing something from me and being frustrated that I wasn't giving it to him. I blocked his email address. In March, I was featured on the cover of a national business magazine. The article was about successful women entrepreneurs who'd built thriving businesses in challenging circumstances. They interviewed me for hours, talking about the Bennett Collective, my consulting approach, my growth strategy. The headline read, Building an Empire, How Naomi Bennett Created Success on Her Own Terms. The article mentioned my divorce briefly, only to note that I'd started the business during a period of personal transition. It focused on my accomplishments, my vision, my future plans. The magazine came out on a Wednesday. By Friday, the article had been shared thousands of times. My website crashed from traffic. My email was flooded with new client inquiries and interview requests. Vanessa ran into my office with the magazine, grinning. We're going to need to hire more people. Like, immediately. She was right. The publicity brought in so much business that we expanded again. We moved into an even larger office space that took up half a floor. We hired 8 new employees. We opened a second location in New York. The Bennett Collective was becoming a recognizable brand in the luxury consulting world. I also started getting offers from major companies who wanted me to speak at their corporate events. The fees were substantial, sometimes $50,000 for a single speech. My accountant called me one day, laughing. Naomi, do you realize you're going to clear $5 million in revenue this year? Your company is valued at over $10 million. I hadn't realized. I'd been so focused on the work, on building something excellent, that I hadn't been tracking the numbers that closely. That's good, right? I asked. That's extraordinary. You built a multi-million-dollar company in less than 2 years. Most businesses take 5 to 10 years to reach this level. The success felt surreal sometimes. Not because I didn't think I deserved it, but because it had happened so fast. But then I'd remember all the years I'd spent learning how to read people, building relationships, understanding business strategy. All the skills I'd developed while supporting Trevor's career. I hadn't come from nowhere. I'd just finally gotten the chance to use everything I'd learned for myself. In April, I was invited to speak at a prestigious business conference in Los Angeles. The theme was resilience and reinvention. They wanted me to deliver the keynote address. The audience was over 1,000 people. Business leaders, entrepreneurs, executives. I walked onto that stage in a sharp suit, looked out at the crowd and felt completely calm. I told my story. Not the details of the divorce, but the journey. Losing everything. Starting over. Building something new. Finding strength in the struggle. The person who left me did me a favor, I said near the end of the speech. He removed himself from my life, and in doing so, he made room for me to become who I was always meant to be. His leaving wasn't my ending. It was my beginning. The standing ovation lasted for several minutes. Afterwards, dozens of people approached me. They shared their stories, their struggles, their victories. They thanked me for being honest about how hard it was, and how worth it the journey could be. One woman, probably in her 60s, hugged me with tears in her eyes. My husband left me after 30 years. I thought my life was over. But watching you, hearing you, I realized maybe it's just starting. Thank you. That's when I understood the real power of what I'd built. It wasn't just a successful business. It was proof that life could get better. That you could lose everything and still win. That your worth wasn't determined by someone else's decision to stay or leave. I flew back home feeling energized and purposeful. Trevor must have seen the magazine cover or heard about the conference speech, because the emails started again. Multiple emails over several days, each one more desperate than the last. He'd made a mistake. He wanted to fix things. He still loved me. He changed. Colette meant nothing. I was the only one who mattered. Please, please, please give him another chance. I set up an automatic filter that sent his emails directly to trash. I didn't need to read them. I didn't need his apologies or his promises. I didn't need anything from him at all. Because I'd built something better than the life we'd had together. I'd built a life that was entirely mine, filled with work I loved, people who valued me, and a future that excited me. Trevor could keep his regrets. I had better things to do than help him manage his feelings. The divorce had been final for months, but the paperwork kept coming. Division of assets, transfer of titles, closing of joint accounts. Each document felt like removing another thread that had tied me to Trevor. Patricia handled most of it, but she'd call when there were decisions to make. The house sold for $40,000 over asking, she informed me in late March. Your portion after fees is substantial. What do you want to do with it? Invest half. Donate 20% to women's shelters and business programs. Keep the rest liquid for business expansion. Done. Also, Trevor's lawyer is requesting a meeting. He wants to discuss something outside the divorce settlement. No. You don't want to hear what it's about? No. Whatever he wants, the answer is no. If it's business related, refer him to my business manager. If it's personal, I'm not interested. Patricia was quiet for a moment. You're doing well, Naomi. A lot of my clients stay stuck in anger or hope. You've genuinely moved on. I had good help, I said. And I had enough self-respect to know I deserved better. The final divorce decree arrived by courier in April. A thick envelope with legal documents that officially ended my marriage. I signed everything that needed signing and filed it away without much emotion. It felt anticlimactic somehow. All those years together, all that history reduced to paperwork and signatures. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the best way to end something was simply to end it, clean and complete, without drama or lingering attachments. I took the afternoon off and drove to my beach house. I sat on the porch with a glass of wine and watched the ocean. The waves kept coming, endless and consistent, washing the beach clean over and over. That's what time had done for me. Washed me clean of the hurt, the anger, the betrayal. I'd been through the storm and now I was on the other side. My phone buzzed. A text from Brooke. Client meeting went perfectly. They signed the contract. 12 months, 6 figures. You're magic. I smiled. Not magic. Just good at what I did. In May, the Bennett Collective celebrated our second anniversary. 2 years since I'd opened the doors with nothing but determination and a laptop. Now we had 23 employees, offices in 3 cities, and clients across 5 continents. We threw a party at a rooftop venue. My entire team was there, plus clients, business partners, and friends. I gave a short speech thanking everyone who'd supported the company's growth. 2 years ago, I started this business with a simple goal: prove that I could build something excellent on my own terms. You've all helped me exceed that goal in ways I never imagined. Thank you for believing in this vision and for making the Bennett Collective what it is today. The applause felt genuine. These people weren't just employees. They were part of something we'd built together. Later in the evening, Vanessa pulled me aside. There's someone here you should meet. Julian Crawford. He's a venture capitalist who's interested in discussing investment opportunities. I followed her to where a man in his 40s stood by the bar. He had an easy smile and intelligent eyes. Naomi Bennett, he said, shaking my hand firmly. I've been following your company's growth. It's impressive. Thank you. Are you looking to invest? Potentially. I'm interested in companies with strong leadership and sustainable growth models. You've built something special here. I'd like to discuss whether there's alignment between your vision and my investment strategy. We talked for 20 minutes. He asked smart questions about my business model, my growth projections, my long-term goals. I appreciated that he was direct and knowledgeable. I'm not looking to give up control of my company, I said clearly. Any investment would need to maintain my majority ownership and decision-making authority. Understood. I'm not interested in taking over. I'm interested in helping you scale faster. You could go international more aggressively with the right capital backing. Was intriguing. I'd been self-funding everything, which meant growth was limited by revenue. An investor could accelerate expansion significantly. Send me a proposal, I said. I'll review it with my business manager and legal team. I'll have something to you by next week. After he left, Vanessa practically bounced with excitement. Do you know who that is? Julian Crawford has funded some of the most successful companies in the country. If he's interested in investing in us, that's huge. Let's see what he proposes before we get excited. But privately, I was intrigued. The Bennett Collective could go from successful to industry-leading with the right investment. And I'd built something solid enough that investors were seeking me out. The proposal arrived 5 days later. It was comprehensive and reasonable. Julian was offering a significant investment in exchange for 20% equity. He'd remain a silent partner, providing capital and connections but leaving all operational decisions to me. I spent a week reviewing it with my team. We ran projections, discussed pros and cons, evaluated risks. This could triple our growth rate, my business manager said. You could open offices in London, Tokyo, Dubai. You could hire the best talent in the industry. You could become the global leader in luxury consulting. What's the downside? Accountability to an investor. You'd need to hit certain benchmarks. There'd be quarterly reviews. And if you ever wanted to sell, he'd have input on that decision. I thought about it carefully. Was I willing to give up a piece of my company to grow faster? The old Naomi would have been scared. She would have wanted to maintain complete control, to avoid any risk of losing what she'd built. But the new Naomi understood that sometimes you had to take calculated risks to reach the next level. Let's do it, I decided. But I want ironclad agreements about my decision-making authority. And I want input on how the investment capital is allocated. We negotiated details for another 2 weeks. Julian was professional and fair. By June we had a signed agreement. The Bennett Collective had a major investor and the capital to expand globally. The first thing I did with the investment was open an office in London, then Tokyo, then Sydney. I hired top consultants in each location, people with local expertise and international experience. I developed training programs to ensure every office maintained the Bennett Collective's standards of excellence. I traveled constantly, overseeing the expansion, meeting with new clients, speaking at international business conferences. It was exhausting and exhilarating. By August, just over a year and a half since Trevor left, I was running a truly global company. We had offices on 4 continents. We had over 50 employees. We were generating annual revenue in excess of $8 million. I'd built an empire. And I'd done it all without him. The irony wasn't lost on me. Trevor had left to find himself and ended up lost. I'd been left behind and ended up finding everything. In September, I got a message from Patricia. Trevor's lawyer reached out again. He's requesting a meeting with you. He says it's urgent and personal. What does he want? They won't say unless you agree to meet. I thought about it for maybe 30 seconds. No, I don't care what he wants. We're divorced. We have no business together. I'm not interested. I'll let them know. An hour later, Trevor called me directly. I'd forgotten I'd unblocked his number after the divorce was finalized. Naomi, please. I need to talk to you. Just once. In person. His voice sounded strained. Desperate. We have nothing to talk about, Trevor. Please. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I'm asking anyway. 30 minutes. That's all I need. Why? Because I need to apologize. Really apologize. Face to face. And because I need you to know the truth about everything that happened. I already know the truth. You had an affair. You left. We're divorced. What else is there? There's so much more. Please, Naomi. I've respected your boundaries for months. I haven't shown up at your office or your home. I haven't tried to contact you through friends. I'm asking for one conversation. Then I'll never bother you again if that's what you want. I should have said no. I should have hung up. But something in his voice caught me. Not the desperation, but something else. Defeat, maybe. Or genuine remorse. Fine. 30 minutes. But we meet in public and we meet on my terms. Anything. Name the place and time. The coffee shop on 5th Street. Tomorrow at 2. If you're late, I'm leaving. I'll be there. Thank you, Naomi. I hung up and immediately questioned my decision. Why had I agreed? I didn't need closure. I didn't need his apologies. I'd moved on. But maybe that was exactly why I could meet with him. Because I had moved on. Because seeing him wouldn't hurt me or set me back. Because I was strong enough now to face him without falling apart. I called Dr. Hammond and told her about the meeting. How do you feel about it? She asked. Curious, I guess. and maybe a little bit ready to see him realize what he lost. That's not revenge. That's consequence. He made choices. Now he gets to see the results. Is it petty that I want him to see how well I'm doing? It's human. You built something incredible after he destroyed your marriage. Wanting him to see that isn't petty. It's just true. I felt better after talking to her. I wasn't meeting Trevor because I needed anything from him. I was meeting him because I could. Because I was strong enough to look at him and feel nothing but indifference. Tomorrow would either be closure I didn't know I needed, or confirmation that I'd truly moved on. Either way, I was ready. I arrived at the coffee shop 10 minutes early. I wanted to choose my seat, wanted to be settled and calm when Trevor walked in. I ordered a black coffee and sat at a table near the window, where the afternoon light was bright and clear. I dressed carefully. A tailored dress in navy blue, simple jewelry, my hair in a sleek ponytail. I looked professional and put together. I looked successful. I wanted him to see exactly what he'd walked away from. At exactly 2 o'clock, Trevor walked through the door. He spotted me immediately and made his way over. I'd prepared myself to see him, but the reality was still jarring. He looked different. Older. Tired. He'd lost weight and not in a healthy way. His suit was expensive but didn't fit quite right anymore. His eyes had shadows under them. "Naomi," he said, sitting down across from me. "Thank you for meeting me." 30 minutes, I reminded him. "Starting now." He nodded. "You look incredible. I saw the magazine cover. And I heard about your company's expansion. You've done amazing things." "I didn't come here for compliments, Trevor. You said you needed to talk. So talk." He took a breath. "I was an idiot. Everything I did, everything I said when I left, it was all wrong. I was selfish and cruel and completely blind. I know. Colette wasn't what I thought she was. The relationship was a fantasy. We had nothing real. No depth, no partnership. It was just empty. That must have been disappointing for you." My tone was cool, detached. I watched him flinch. "I deserve that. I deserve worse than that." He leaned forward. "But I need you to understand something. The affair wasn't about you. You were everything I should have wanted. You were smart and supportive and beautiful. You made my life better in every way. Then why did you leave? Because I was stupid. Because I hit 40 and panicked. Because Colette represented a time when I was younger and life felt simpler. Because I convinced myself I was missing something, when really, I had everything I needed right in front of me." I sipped my coffee and waited. When I left, I thought I was finding freedom. I thought I was choosing happiness. But I was just destroying the best thing in my life. His voice cracked. "And I didn't realize it until it was too late." "When did you realize it?" "About 3 months after I left. Colette was expensive, demanding, self-centered. She didn't care about my business or my problems. She just wanted the lifestyle I could provide. And when I couldn't provide it anymore because my business was falling apart, she left. I heard that happened at a restaurant. Very public." He winced. "She threw a drink in my face and walked out. Said I was washed up and boring. Said I'd promised her excitement and delivered mediocrity." A small part of me felt satisfied hearing that. But mostly I just felt nothing. "I'm sorry that happened," I said, and I meant it. Not because I cared about his pain, but because I was a decent person and no one deserved public humiliation. After she left, I tried to fix my business. But it was too late. My reputation was damaged. People had lost trust in me. Clients left. Partners dissolved our agreements. I lost everything I'd built. That's unfortunate. Is it? He looked at me intently. Or is it what I deserved? I threw away everything good for something fake. I destroyed my marriage, my business, my reputation. All for what? A midlife crisis? A fantasy? I don't know what you want me to say, Trevor. I want you to say you'll give me another chance. I want you to say we can try again. I know I don't deserve it. I know I hurt you. But I've changed. I understand what I lost. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you if you'll just give me a chance. There it was. The real reason for this meeting. You wanted me back. I set down my coffee cup and looked at him directly. No. Naomi, please. No, I repeated firmly. I'm not giving you another chance. I'm not trying again. I'm not going back to that life. But I love you. I never stopped loving you. You don't love me, Trevor. You love the idea of what I represented. Stability. Support. Success. You love what I did for you, not who I am. That's not true. It is true. You didn't respect me when we were married. You took me for granted. You used my skills to build your business and never acknowledged it. You had an affair for an entire year and didn't think I deserved honesty. That's not love. He looked stricken. I know I made mistakes. They weren't mistakes. Mistakes are accidental. What you did was deliberate. You chose to cheat. You chose to lie. You chose to leave. Those were conscious decisions, and you don't get to call them mistakes now that you regret them. But I do regret them. Every single day. I wake up regretting what I did. I see your success and I'm proud of you, but I also hate that I'm not part of it. I hate that you built this incredible life without me. And there was the truth. He didn't want me back because he loved me. He wanted me back because he couldn't stand that I was succeeding without him. That I was better off alone than I'd ever been with him. I am better without you, I said, reading his thoughts. I'm happier, more successful, more fulfilled. You leaving was the best thing that ever happened to me. You don't mean that. I absolutely mean that. You freed me, Trevor. You removed yourself from my life and gave me space to become who I was always meant to be. I'm grateful to you for that. He looked like I'd slapped him. You can't mean that. We had something good. We can have it again. No, we can't. Because I don't want to. I don't want to be married to you. I don't want to go back to being in the background of your life. I don't want to sacrifice my dreams for yours. I've built something incredible on my own, and I'm not giving it up for anyone. I wouldn't ask you to give anything up. We could be partners. Real partners this time. I almost laughed. We were never partners, Trevor. I was your support system. I was the one who made you look good, who smoothed over your mistakes, who connected you with the right people. You took credit for everything while I stayed in the shadows. That wasn't a partnership. That was me making you successful while I disappeared. Then I'll change. I'll support you. I'll be in the background. Whatever you need. I don't need anything from you. That's what you're not understanding. I don't need you to support me. I don't need you to change. I don't need you at all. The words hung in the air between us. True and final and absolute. Trevor's face crumpled. For the first time, he looked like he truly understood what he'd lost. There's really no chance? He asked quietly. None. Even after 8 years together? Even after everything we built? We didn't build anything together, Trevor. You built your business. I helped, but it was always yours. Now I've built my own business and it's mine. And it's better than anything I could have had with you. I can't believe you're just throwing away what we had. I'm not throwing away anything. You threw it away when you had an affair. You threw it away when you walked out. You threw it away when you chose someone else over me. I'm just refusing to pick it up and put it back together. I stood up. Our 30 minutes weren't quite over, but I was done. I hope you find what you're looking for, Trevor. I hope you rebuild your business and your life. I hope you learn from your mistakes and become a better person. But I won't be part of that journey. That's not my responsibility anymore. Naomi, wait. Goodbye, Trevor. I walked out of the coffee shop without looking back. My hands were steady. My head was clear. My heart felt light. As I got into my car, I realized something. I needed this meeting after all. Not for closure, but for confirmation. Confirmation that I'd made the right choice. Confirmation that I was stronger than I'd ever been. Confirmation that I truly didn't want him back. He'd asked for another chance, and I'd said no without hesitation or doubt. That was power. That was growth. That was freedom. I drove to my office and went back to work. I had meetings to prepare for, proposals to review, a business to run. I had a life that was full and satisfying and entirely mine. Trevor was my past. But my future? That was unlimited. The meeting with Trevor had been almost 6 months ago, and I hadn't heard from him since. That suited me just fine. I'd said everything I needed to say, and he'd finally understood there was no going back. Life moved forward at an incredible pace. The Bennett Collective continued expanding. By December, we had offices in 7 cities across 4 continents. We'd hired consultants who spoke 12 different languages. We were working with clients from Fortune 500 companies to royal families in the Middle East. I'd also launched a mentorship program. Women who were rebuilding their lives after divorce, job loss, or other major transitions could apply for free consulting services and business coaching. We accepted 20 women into the program each quarter and helped them develop business plans, build their confidence, and launch their own ventures. The program was Vanessa's idea. You've built something incredible from rock bottom, she said. There are thousands of women who need to know that's possible. We should help them. We funded the program through a portion of our profits, and it quickly became the part of my work I was most proud of. Watching these women transform, watching them discover their own strength, watching them build businesses and lives they loved, it was more rewarding than any amount of money. I also started writing a book. A publisher had approached me after seeing my conference speeches and social media presence. They wanted me to write about building a business after personal devastation, about finding self-worth, about creating success on your own terms. I wrote in the early mornings and late evenings, whenever I could steal an hour. The words poured out of me, all the lessons I'd learned, all the pain I'd processed, all the growth I'd experienced. It was therapeutic and exhausting and exciting all at once. The book would be published in the spring, and advance reviews were strong. The publisher thought it could be a bestseller. In January, 3 years after Trevor left, I spoke at a women's conference in Chicago. The theme was Reclaiming Your Power, and I was the closing keynote speaker. I told my story. All of it this time. The affair, the abandonment, the rebuilding. I talked about the pain and the anger and the slow journey to healing. I talked about building a business, finding my worth, learning to stand alone. The person who hurt me thought he was breaking me, I said. He thought leaving would destroy me. And for a while it did. But then I made a choice. I decided that his leaving wouldn't define me. My response would define me. And I chose to build something beautiful from the rubble. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. Now, 3 years later, my business is thriving. I've traveled the world. I've helped dozens of other women start their own businesses. I've written a book. I've become someone I'm proud of. And the man who left me? He's still trying to rebuild what he destroyed. Not our relationship, I made clear, that's never happening, but his life. His business. His reputation. I paused, looking out at the crowd of hundreds of women. I'm not glad he hurt me. But I am glad he left. Because if he hadn't, I would never have discovered who I could be. I would never have pushed myself this hard. I would never have built something this meaningful. His leaving wasn't my ending. It was my freedom. The standing ovation lasted for 5 minutes. Women were crying, cheering, holding up signs that said, "Thank you," and "Me too," and "This is my year." After the speech, the line to talk to me stretched across the entire conference hall. Women waited for hours just to shake my hand, to tell me their stories, to thank me for being honest about the struggle. One woman, probably in her 50s, gripped my hands with tears streaming down her face. My husband just left me last month for a younger woman. I've been so lost, so broken. But hearing you today, I realized I'm going to be okay. Better than okay. This is my chance to become who I was always meant to be. Thank you for showing me that. That moment, those conversations were why I kept speaking, kept sharing my story. Because someone needed to hear it. Someone needed to know that devastation didn't have to be the end. It could be the beginning. In February, I was invited to speak at the United Nations for International Women's Day. They wanted me to address women's economic empowerment and entrepreneurship. It was the honor of a lifetime. I stood at that podium, looking out at representatives from countries around the world, and talked about the power of starting over. About the importance of giving women the resources and support to build their own economic independence. About creating a world where a woman's worth wasn't determined by her relationship status but by her character, her skills, her contributions. The speech was live-streamed and went viral. Within days, it had millions of views. My social media following exploded. I received hundreds of business inquiries and speaking invitations. But the messages that meant the most were the personal ones. Women from all over the world telling me their stories. Telling me they'd found courage in my words. Telling me they were starting businesses, leaving bad relationships, pursuing dreams they'd given up on. I tried to respond to as many as I could. Even if it was just a few words of encouragement, I wanted them to know someone saw them, someone believed in them, someone understood. The book launched in March to strong sales and excellent reviews. It debuted at number 4 on the national bestseller list and climbed to number 1 within 2 weeks. Publishers Weekly called it an honest, inspiring guide to rebuilding your life and finding your power. I did a book tour, traveling to 15 cities in 3 weeks. Every event was packed. Women brought copies for me to sign, many with tear-stained pages and highlighted sections. They told me which parts made them cry, which parts gave them hope, which parts made them finally leave bad situations or start that business they've been dreaming about. The book wasn't making me rich, the publishing advance was good but not life-changing, and most money from sales went back to my publisher. But it was changing lives, and that felt more valuable than any amount of money. During the book tour, I was recognized constantly. In airports, restaurants, hotel lobbies. Women would approach me, sometimes nervous, always kind. "Are you Naomi Bennett? I read your book. It changed my life. I heard you speak last year. You inspired me to start my own business. I was in a bad marriage for 20 years. Your story gave me the courage to leave. Thank you." Each interaction reminded me why I'd chosen to be public about my journey. Why I'd shared the painful parts along with the triumphant parts. Because someone needed to see that it was possible to survive devastation and come out stronger. By spring, the Bennett Collective was valued at $25 million. We had over 100 employees. We were turning down client work because we were at capacity. Julian Crawford suggested we consider taking the company public within the next few years. "You've built something remarkable," he said during one of our quarterly meetings. "You could scale this even bigger. Become a publicly traded company. Make you and your team very wealthy in the process." I considered it. Going public would mean more capital, faster growth, the ability to expand into markets we hadn't touched yet. But it would also mean more scrutiny, more pressure, less control. "Let me think about it," I said. "I'm not sure I want to sacrifice the company culture we've built just to grow bigger." That's why you're a good CEO. You're not chasing growth for growth's sake. You're building something sustainable. I didn't have to decide immediately. For now, I was content with where we were. Growing steadily, maintaining excellence, making a real impact. In June, 3.5 years after Trevor left, I was invited to give a TED Talk. The topic was Building an Empire After Devastation, Turning Pain into Power. I stood on that iconic red circle, looking out at the audience and the cameras that would broadcast this to millions, and I told the truth. I talked about the moment I found the messages on Trevor's phone. The moment he left. The moment I decided to stop crying and start building. I talked about the fear and uncertainty. The nights I doubted everything. The times I wanted to give up. But I also talked about the victories. The first client. The first profitable quarter. The first time someone told me I'd inspired them. Pain is not the end of your story, I said. Pain is just a chapter. A hard chapter, a terrible chapter, but still just a chapter. You get to write the next one. And the one after that. You get to decide whether your story is about what happened to you or what you did next. I ended the talk with this. 3 years ago, someone I loved told me he was leaving to find himself. I thought it would destroy me. Instead, it freed me. It forced me to find myself. And the person I found? She was stronger than I ever knew. She was capable of more than I ever imagined. She was worth more than anyone had ever told her. So if you're in that dark place right now, if someone just shattered your world, if you're wondering how you'll survive, let me tell you, you will not just survive. You will thrive. You will build something beautiful. You will become someone incredible. Because that's what we do. We take what breaks us and we forge it into something unbreakable. The applause echoed through the theater. But more importantly, the message echoed around the world. The TED Talk was viewed over 10 million times in the first month. It sparked conversations about resilience, entrepreneurship, self-worth, and recovery. News outlets interviewed me. Business magazines profiled me. I became, somewhat reluctantly, a symbol of rebuilding and empowerment. Through it all, I stayed focused on what mattered: the work, the clients, the mentorship program, the women whose lives were changing because someone finally told them they could. I heard, through several sources, that Trevor had seen the book, read the articles, watched the TED Talk. I heard he'd been in therapy, working on himself, trying to become a better person. I was glad for him. Genuinely. I didn't want him to suffer forever. I just didn't want any part of his journey. My journey was my own now. And it was more than I'd ever dreamed possible. The business gala was in 2 hours, and I stood in my penthouse, adjusting the elegant evening gown I'd chosen for tonight. Deep emerald green, simple lines, nothing flashy. I didn't need flash. I had substance. Tonight, I was receiving the Entrepreneur of the Year award from the Business Leadership Council. It was one of the most prestigious honors in the industry, and past recipients included founders of billion-dollar companies and legendary business innovators. 4 years ago, I'd been standing in my kitchen watching my husband pack his bags. 4 years ago, I'd been heartbroken and lost. Now I was about to be recognized as one of the most successful business leaders in the country. I looked at myself in the mirror. I changed so much. Not just physically, though I was healthier and more confident. But internally, I was a completely different person than the woman who'd been married to Trevor. That woman had been capable but hidden. Talented but silent. Strong but submissive. This woman was powerful. Visible. Unapologetic. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa: "Car is here. Ready to celebrate?" I grabbed my clutch and headed downstairs. The gala was at the city's most exclusive hotel. Crystal chandeliers, designer flowers, tables that cost $10,000 to sponsor. Everyone who mattered in the business world would be there. When I arrived, photographers lined the red carpet. I smiled for the cameras, answered a few questions from reporters, and made my way inside. Naomi. Gabrielle Torres waved me over to her table. She was here with her husband and several other prestige hospitality executives. You look stunning. How does it feel? Surreal, I admitted. 4 years ago I was starting from zero. Now this. You didn't start from zero. You started with incredible skills and determination. You just finally had the chance to use them. She squeezed my hand. I'm so proud of you. I made my way through the room, greeting clients, colleagues, friends. Julian Crawford was there with his wife. My entire leadership team had a table near the front. Even Dr. Hammond had come, smiling proudly from her seat. The evening began with dinner, followed by a video presentation about the award recipients. When my segment started, I watched my journey play out on the massive screens. Photos of me at early client meetings, clips from speeches, images of the Bennett Collective offices around the world. The narrator's voice described how I'd built a multi-million-dollar global consulting firm in just 4 years. How I'd created a mentorship program that had helped over 200 women start their own businesses. How I'd become a sought-after speaker and best-selling author. How I'd turned personal devastation into professional triumph. The applause when the video ended was thunderous. Then it was time for my award. The presenter, a CEO I'd long admired, took the stage. This year's Entrepreneur of the Year didn't just build a successful business, she said. She built an empire from the ground up, during one of the most difficult periods of her life. She showed us that success isn't about circumstances. It's about choices. And she chose to rise. I walked up to the stage, accepted the Crystal Award, and stood behind the podium. 1,000 faces looked back at me. I'd prepared a speech, of course. But standing there, looking out at this room full of influential people who'd come to celebrate success, I decided to speak from the heart instead. 4 years ago, someone told me he was leaving to find himself. I began. The room was silent. I thought it would destroy me. I thought I'd never recover. I thought my life was ending. I paused, looking down at the award in my hands. But I was wrong. My life wasn't ending. It was beginning. Because when that person left, he took with him all the excuses I'd been making. All the reasons I'd given for not pursuing my own dreams. All the ways I'd made myself smaller to fit into someone else's life. I looked back up at the audience. He left me with nothing except my skills, my connections, and my determination. And it turned out that was more than enough. That was everything I needed. Heads nodded throughout the room. I saw women wiping their eyes. The Bennett Collective exists because someone broke my heart. This award exists in my hands because someone made me feel worthless. And I stand here tonight as proof that what breaks you doesn't have to define you. How you rebuild defines you. I saw movement in the back of the room. Someone had come in late and was being quietly seated by staff. My eyes caught on the figure and my stomach dropped. Trevor. He was here. In the audience. Watching me receive this award. Our eyes met across the distance. He looked both proud and devastated. Like he was happy for me but destroyed by the reminder of what he'd lost. I held his gaze for 1 second. Then I looked away and continued my speech. I want to thank everyone who supported me on this journey. My incredible team at the Bennett Collective. My clients who trusted me. My mentors who guided me. My friends who believed in me. And everyone who shared their own stories of rebuilding and rising. You inspired me as much as I hope I inspired you. I raised the award slightly. This isn't just mine. It belongs to every person who ever had to start over. Whoever had to rebuild from nothing. Whoever looked at devastation and decided to create something beautiful instead. This is for all of us. The standing ovation was immediate and sustained. People weren't just applauding the award or my success. They were applauding the journey. The resilience. The refusal to stay down. I made my way off the stage and back through the crowd. People stopped me constantly to congratulate me, to hug me, to tell me their own stories of rebuilding. I avoided looking in Trevor's direction. I didn't know why he was here or how he'd gotten a ticket, and I didn't care. This was my night. My moment. My triumph. Later, as the gala wound down, I stepped out onto the hotel's terrace for some air. The city glittered below, full of lights and life and possibility. Naomi. I turned. Trevor stood a few feet away, looking uncertain. He was wearing a tuxedo that hung slightly loose on him, and he looked older than his years. You shouldn't be here, I said calmly. I know. I'm sorry. I saw that you were receiving the award and I had to come. I had to see it. Why? Because I'm proud of you. Because you deserve this. Because I needed to see with my own eyes what you've built. I studied him. He looked sincere. Remorseful. but I felt nothing. Did you think seeing me would change something? I asked. No. I know there's no chance for us. You've made that clear. He took a breath. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. I understand what I lost. I understand what I threw away. And I understand that I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I'm sorry you're in pain, Trevor. I genuinely am. But your regrets aren't my responsibility. I know. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just telling you that you were right. About everything. You said I'd taken you for granted, that I'd used your talents without acknowledging them, that I'd never truly valued you. You were right. I know I was right. He almost smiled at that. You become so strong. So confident. I always knew you had it in you, but I never gave you the space to show it. That was your mistake. Yes, it was. We stood in silence for a moment. The sounds of the gala drifted out from inside: laughter, music, conversation. I hope you find peace, Trevor. I hope you rebuild your life and your business. I hope you learn from this and become a better person. I met his eyes directly. But I also hope you understand that I'm not part of that journey. I've built a life I love and you're not in it. I understand. His voice was thick with emotion. Can I ask you one thing? Maybe. Are you happy? Truly happy? I thought about my question. Was I happy? Not in the fairy tale way where everything was perfect and nothing ever hurt, but in a real, deep, sustainable way. Yes, I said honestly. I'm happy. I wake up every day excited about my work. I'm surrounded by people who value me. I'm making a difference in people's lives. I'm building something meaningful. So yes, I'm truly happy. He nodded slowly like he'd expected that answer, but it still hurt to hear. Good. That's good. You deserve to be happy. I know. He looked like he wanted to say more, but I was done with this conversation. I'd given him more time than he deserved. Goodbye, Trevor. Goodbye, Naomi. I walked past him, back into the gala, back to my life. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. That chapter was closed. Permanently. I found my team at their table, laughing and celebrating. Vanessa saw me first and stood up, grinning. There she is. Entrepreneur of the Year. How does it feel? I looked at these people who'd helped me build something incredible. Who'd believed in my vision. Who'd worked tirelessly to make the Bennett Collective what it was. It feels like freedom, I said. And it did. Complete, absolute freedom. Freedom from the past. Freedom from needing anyone's validation. Freedom to build whatever life I wanted. Trevor had left to find himself 4 years ago. He'd walked out thinking he was choosing something better, something more exciting, something that would make him feel alive. Instead, he'd lost everything that mattered. And I'd found everything I never knew I needed. The irony was beautiful. Later that night, after the gala ended, I sat on my balcony with a glass of champagne, looking out at the city. My phone was full of congratulatory messages. Photos from the event were already circulating on social media. But what I kept thinking about was that young woman 4 years ago, crying in the dark, wondering how she'd survive. I wished I could go back and tell her what I knew now. I'd tell her that the pain wouldn't last forever. That she was stronger than she knew. That losing everything would teach her to build something unshakable. I'd tell her that the person who left her was doing her a favor. That his absence would create space for her to become who she was always meant to be. I'd tell her that 4 years from now, she'd be standing on a stage, accepting an award, living a life she'd never even dreamed was possible. Most of all, I'd tell her this: the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building a life so full, so successful, so genuinely happy that the person who hurt you becomes irrelevant. And that's exactly what I'd done. Trevor had wanted freedom. He'd gotten it, and it had cost him everything. I'd been given freedom involuntarily. And I'd turned it into an empire. I raised my glass to the city, to the life I'd built, to the woman I'd become. Thank you, I whispered to the universe, to fate, to whatever force had brought me through the darkness. Thank you for breaking me. Because I rebuilt myself into something unbreakable. The lights of the city glittered back at me, full of promise and possibility. And I smiled. Because my story wasn't over. It was just beginning. This was my life now. Built on my terms, by my rules, for my happiness. And nobody, not Trevor, not anyone, could take that away from me. I was free. Completely, absolutely, gloriously free. And freedom, I'd learned, was worth more than anything else in the world.